This is the Global Broadcasting Service, serving remote outposts since 1928.
Hi, everyone. Welcome aboard the Walt Disney World Express monorail.
Caramba, we have something really big for you today.
Welcome, foolish mortals.
Now then, hang on to them hats and glasses, because this here's the wildest ride in the wilderness.
This is the DBC Pod with Phil Schoen and Jason Dodge. Hi, friends. Welcome to this week's pod, this show for the week of May 20th, 2024. And boy, Phil, what did we posted the last week's podcast on Tuesday. And Len Testa always likes to say we like to start a show with a round of self-congratulations. We're going to start the show with a round of
Eating crow,
or whatever the term is. And boy, did we miss out. So we were talking about last week, Tiana's announced their opening date, and we're kind of going through all that type of stuff. And we're like, okay, this is going to be an individual lightning lane. There's all this other stuff. And boy, Phil, how wrong were we? Like literally like 5 hours after we posted the podcast.
Yeah, we were all talking about for when my wife's there on the first day. Well, it's no problem. We'll just buy her an individual lightning lane and make sure she gets the virtual queue and stuff like that. So the big thing we were wrong about, and I put in the show notes, what they say about you when you make assumptions, is that it's not, Tiana's Bayou Adventure is not going to be an individual lightning lane ride. It is going to be part of Genie Plus. So obviously that changes the strategy now for now you got to buy Genie Plus and you got to pick your first Genie Plus, which if it's going to be Tiana's at 7, also try to get a virtual queue. They said it will have a virtual queue to start, but their intention is that it will be for a very short time. We don't know what that means, but everything I'm hearing is like weeks type thing. So it's then you're gonna have to get your Genie Plus. You're gonna have to, if you're gonna do a virtual queue for Tron and individual lightning, way too many things at 7. It's back to the whole problem. We talk about too many things, but I thought it was interesting. And the more I thought about it, the more it kind of made sense as to why they would do this. It adds value to Genie Plus. I don't think they were going to have 3 individual lightning lanes.
Because we talked about which one is going to drop, right?
Yeah.
We thought they were definitely not having 3 individual lightning lanes. So we were right on it.
I guess we're right on that.
So I'll take that silver lining. I'll pat myself slightly on the back. But no, it's like so Tron and Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. And I think I forget who had this point. It was some podcast, and I apologize if I'm stealing somebody's opinion. It was somebody else's opinion. It was definitely not mine. Was, obviously, they have Mine Train and they make a ton of money from that.
Yeah.
Obviously, Tron is brand new experience and they make a ton of money from that. Taking one of those away to put it on a new attraction where they don't know how much money that's going to make is a gamble, right? So they know how much they're going to make from those other 2 attractions. So why why gamble that money away and kind of basically?
I know Tom Bricker mentioned specifically like water rides need more maintenance and they're not as popular necessarily. Not everyone's going to ride it. So it was definitely, like you said, a gamble to shift it from kind of a no money maker,
a lot of downtime,
to something else. And, I think the capacity of this ride should be plenty high. It has a long queue. It can handle a long standby and stuff like that. So it's kind of one of those things where I think we just kind of like, it's the new big ride. Disney likes making money. They can make more money by having it as an individual lightning lane.
Sure.
But I think the more I thought about it afterwards, or maybe it just kind of settled, or I'm just accepting it, I can kind of understand the decision they made. But
from Disney's point of view, it kind of makes sense. They have brand new attraction. They don't want to ask everybody to start paying extra money for it as it's opening, right? Like this is an existing attraction. It was just basically a redo, a very popular one.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're going to I think it would have been a bad look to do it that way. So I can see why they're doing it. Even though I totally thought Disney was going to totally greed out on this one. What is your take on the fact that there is going to be a virtual queue, but they've said it's going to be short? Like this is going to be probably standby, if I had to guess, by September at the very latest.
Oh yeah, I would be shocked if it's that. Like I'd be shocked if it's for my trip in August. I'm hearing some people speculating it might be less than a week. It might just be for the first couple days where it's like kind of
all the
locals are trying to get there and kind of give everybody one shot to get on. One thing I was thinking about is the first, because it's on a Friday. the first deluxe evening hours at Magic Kingdom is that following Wednesday. So are they going to keep it as a virtual queue, and then the deluxe people have the virtual queue at 6 p.m. Or could it, by that following Wednesday, it's no longer a virtual queue and it's just a standby?
I think they're going to play it by ear. They're going to see what the demand looks like, and if it starts petering down to like what the average wait times were when it was Splash, they're gonna because I think they want the ride to be open and working, and then B, sucking up people into the standby queue. Right? They want that capacity, and they have plenty of, I guess, data from Guardians and everything else of like how much people that takes into that queue, right? So I think they definitely want that to kind of balance out the park. So now here's the thing. You briefly mentioned this at 7 a.m., right? Mm-hmm. So what is your wife's strategy for this? Basically, her strategy is like you waking up with her and helping her out,
me helping her out from home, and some of our friends probably helping too.
But here's the question, right? I in case people don't get what I'm saying at 7 a.m., you have decisions you need to make.
Yep.
You have to get a virtual queue for Tiana's. You have to get a Genie Plus for Tiana's, because those are going to be two things that are going to be gone in seconds. Yep. Like those are going to be gone, and you can get both of them. Right? Like you can get both of these, and you have to get them within 3 seconds, especially the day your wife is going. And then you have your individual lightning lane selections that if your wife's getting them, you have those three things you're going to be gunning for at 7 a.m. So obviously your wife's going to have an army of people doing this for her. Like your wife and your kids are going to go like, your job is virtual queue. Your job is Genie Lightning Lane. Somebody else's job, if they're doing an individual Lightning Lane, you need a third person to then go book Tron or Mine Train, whatever they want. Maybe they don't want any of those, but whatever. But I'm assuming they're going to want Tron, right? So what about virtual queue for Tron that day? You can only get one virtual queue at a time, correct? Or can you get both?
I think you can only get one at a time, but if you get one at 7, you could get the other.
Get the one at the 1 o'clock drop. Yeah. So what is your strategy as a family, and what is the strategy you would, if somebody was asking you for advice, what would you go for?
So honestly, I'm debating it. I think it's going to be really interesting, and obviously we get no heads up from my wife because it's the first day. My initial thought is, assuming we're going to get our Genie Plus, is to do Genie Plus first, because you're paying for it, you want to use it. And then if you don't get the virtual queue, you could try at the 1 p.m. So you kind of have a second shot at a virtual queue for the ride.
See, I disagree with you.
Okay.
So the virtual queue is going to be the harder one to get at 7 a.m. because all the locals everybody's going to try to get in with park tickets, right? So everybody's going to try for that virtual queue. The Genie Plus is going to be less people. The Lightning Lane is going to be less people because not all the locals are going to get by Genie Plus to get on, so they're going to get the 1 p.m. drop, and the 1 p.m. drop is going to be super hard.
It's going to be hard, especially the first couple of days.
I would want, especially since your wife's only going to be there one day and she's not going to have another opportunity to get it. I would say try to get the virtual queue at 7, because if you can't get it, you still have another chance to get it. Right. So I think you try for both. And then you, on the other side, are going whoever's the slowest. So I guess you're pretty darn fast with the app.
Theoretically, if you're home on your home internet, you should be faster. So I should be faster than my wife.
Well, I think you're just faster in general with the app, because I've seen you work. Like you got me Rise the first time I went.
Well, she's pretty good too. So she's
okay. Well, I'll give her credit then. I'm sorry. But yes, whoever thinks is the fastest should be the virtual queue. That should be the thing, and then somebody else that may or may not be as reliable with the internet and whatever should be doing. Because you could have like the atomic clock. You could be you can set it up. You might have access to that on property with your wife. But yeah, I think virtual queue should be the main target, and then the other person is the Lightning. Because you could the Genie Plus, I don't think is going to sell out within seconds. You might get a late.
Yeah, I guess my thought was if your goal is I absolutely want to get one ride, do the Genie Plus, because you'll have a better shot at getting it.
Okay.
Excuse me. If you try for the virtual, and I'm thinking, if I'm only one person or a couple people, if you try for the virtual queue and then get shut out and then try for Genie Plus, it could get shut out.
Oh,
there,
for the average person, yeah. So
Yeah.
if I'm a person that doesn't have an army of assistants,
Yeah.
that was my original question, right? So I'm totally, I totally didn't do it. So if you're the only person, your dad, your mom, your big brother, whoever's in charge of their phone, and the only person doing it, I would definitely still try for virtual, because if you screw that up, you could still attempt to get a lightning lane for it. I think a second later.
Yeah.
I would borrow one of your spouses, your parents, brother, sister's phone, whoever's got access to it, and have that queued up. So you go, boom, you hit it. And you probably do it simultaneously. You do both, but virtual. I think you should lean on the virtual queue.
Okay.
That's what I was saying. Just because at least you get a second crack at it. If this is like the most important thing that you want to do for that day. However, this is not going to be a question for long.
No.
So your trip. Right,
Yeah.
No more virtual queue. What is your strategy for that?
I was talking with my kids about it because my youngest was just like, oh, it's going to be standby. Like, we got to rope drop it. Like, she's all of a sudden, like, her lights turned up and she was like, we're rope dropping this. I'm like, oh, we weren't planning on rope dropping anything.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Hello. But it might not even be open for rope drop, though.
Well, especially for early entry. Like, I'm really curious because normally Frontierland is not open for early entry. So do we go during early entry and just stand at the rope that's kind of by Haunted Mansion, the Tangled Bathroom type thing to get into Liberty Square? And as soon as the rope drops, we're in the first people to get in the queue.
Like take a ride on the carousel and then just kind of stroll over there. Like, I mean, I guarantee you there's going to be people for early entry that are going to use early entry to line up.
That's what I'm saying. Do we do that? Do we use early
now here's
entry?
another question. Okay, so if you do that, do you line up in Fantasyland or do you line up outside of Adventureland to go over the bridge?
I don't. My thought was Fantasyland to get into Liberty Square and then go through that way. I think that's a straight shot.
It is a straight shot, but the question then becomes because basically when they drop the rope, they almost walk you back a little bit. So there's not a stampede of people running. And I guarantee you there's going to be plenty of people waiting to get to because it's going to be people that are probably going to be locals also waiting to get in, or APs or offsite guests. And they don't want people once the rope drops, it's just running, right? They do not want that. So they're going to walk people back there in the middle of the day. You're going to have to think basically, I think you're right. Fantasyland entrance is going to be the best way to go because the people that are not there for early morning entry are going to be lining up in Adventureland. There's going to be more people there.
Yeah.
So if the cast members seeing less people waiting, they might walk faster because they're not holding back 1,000 people waiting to get back there. It might be like 100 people waiting to get back there. So I think that would be the strategy to go back. But I'd be curious to see how it influences everything. Yeah. Do you waste your extra morning hours just to get on
I don't know. I mean,
line,
like I said, we weren't even going to go for early morning hours. So I guess I'm kind of saying we weren't going to use it anyway. So if we're going to use it but my thought was if we are going to do that, because then we still have deluxe evening hours that night, we are definitely taking a midday break.
Oh, you have to. I mean, you got to do the vacation.
That's
right?
That's what I told my daughter. It's like, all right, we'll go there and we'll do that standby, and then we'll pretty much leave or whatever, or do a couple things. But then, now that it's going to be Genie Plus, I guess we're getting Genie Plus. We weren't necessarily going to get it, so we'll probably try to stack some stuff for when we come back after our break.
Did we talk about how your vacation's being set up yet? Because I feel like I don't know what the cadence of your trip is. Do you have that somewhat lined up yet?
So currently, the plan is because we get there Saturday, and that's going to be either just a resort day or maybe we'll go to Disney Springs to see the drone show.
Okay, awesome.
Then Sunday was going to be Animal Kingdom, which was going to be the one kind of early morning, but do kind of the normal Animal Kingdom day, but it's kind of an earlier day.
An evening resort day or whatever, dinner somewhere. Yep.
Then Monday was Epcot because we have the deluxe evening hours, but again, it was going to be sleep in, stroll over to Epcot at noon or whatever it is and kind of stay through deluxe evening hours.
I like that.
Tuesday was off, which is going to be resort day or again, potentially Disney Springs
drone show thing. Yep.
Then Wednesday was Magic Kingdom, deluxe evening hours. Again, we were going to sleep in, but maybe not now. And then Thursday was Hollywood Studios, where we were going to, again, do my sleep in and stack for that. That was the one day we were going to get Genie Plus.
Yeah, I like that stretch. The
only hiccup
yes.
is when they announced the Halloween parties, my son was because he's all about he loved when we did that after hours thing. He wants to do like nothing but after hours. He's like, let's do the Halloween party.
Did you tell him to get a job?
I know.
All the extra hour stuff.
So so he's pushing for the Halloween party. My daughter's not. So I don't know what we're gonna do for that. That would be the Tuesday. So that was our off day anyway.
He's 11?
12.
So he's got let's see, New York State. Where you got to be 15 to get a job in New York State?
Like a real job, I think so. Yeah, or 14 or something like that. So
yeah, you got a couple more years. You got to start. You got to start saving up that Christmas grandma money or whatever it is. No, I think what's interesting. Again, we're preaching vacation into vacation for frequent goers, right? We're in like turbo mode, like rehab essentially, or anonymous, right? So we're slowly detoxing our like nuttiness for being at Disney World. I think you might enjoy, you wake up, you do the sprint, you have a good time. And usually, at least this is my thing, usually right around like 9-10 o'clock, after like getting up, getting ready, sprinting to the bus, the anxiety of getting there on time, getting online, doing the sprint to the ride, and not enjoying the early stroll in, maybe getting a coffee at Starbucks and watching the opening show on the stage show and all this other stuff. You're like, go. Because you've been doing it since 7 a.m., because you've been up since 7 a.m. making decisions, by like 10 o'clock, it's been like 3 hours of just like, and you've only been on 2 rides and maybe gotten some tater tots from Fired Up type of thing, that like you might like get all of that out, do like the stuff that you really want to do. You're out of the park by 11, and you don't go back till like 4. Yeah, even that's a 5-hour break. Like you'd be like, all right, I did my sweaty like exercise routine. Like now it's just like let's stroll through the park.
Especially if we have Genie Plus, we could have stuff stacked for when we return and stuff like kind of that.
But I think like I think just the psychology of waking up, sprinting, and then taking like a giant breather to get perspective of the day, because that midday is when most people are now showing up. The park is now fully full. People are either hopping in or doing whatever they're going to be doing, and you're leaving. Yeah. And normally if you were there all day, this was like the heart of the day where you're ping-ponging across the park. You're worrying about what your next 5 steps are. You've got 8 hours left. How am I going to get them? Whatever. You take all that anxiety of the day. This is the vacation, therapy session. Like you're at the pool, you're having an adult beverage. The kids are just swimming. They're playing ping pong, and you're just kind of relaxing. You're stacking and thinking, oh, you're doing whatever you're doing. Maybe you're taking a nap. Who knows? But I think that moment for you would be, I think it's beneficial because the day is completely different. Like if you're doing the sprint and then you take a good solid 5 or 6 hours off, and then it's just like a lazy fun time at Magic Kingdom, it might almost feel like 2 park days for you. You got your like busy park day, and then you're kind of like, chill.
If that's what we do, where we do rope drop for Tiana's, that's definitely the plan.
Yep. But I wouldn't just go in for Tiana's and leave, as cool as that sounds. I would like try to hit up
I was being a little hyperbolic there, probably.
Yes.
But
I get that.
Yeah, the idea is we do that's the main thing we're there for. Maybe we do 1 or 2 other things. Maybe we got some beignets and a coffee or whatever. But
hop on Haunted Mansion or Pirates that's open, that type of thing. But yeah, as soon as you like, I would do as many rides as you can that have a 20-minute or less. Yeah. Like that should be your rule. You should pick a time that's less than probably a half hour, right? It says, we're going to go on as many rides as possible that have a posted wait time of 30 minutes or less. And when they all go above 30 minutes, or ones that we don't care about, that's when we leave. And that's when you bounce. You get a coffee, you get a snack, you get a Mickey pretzel or ice cream or whatever, and you're out of there, right? You're going. So I think that would be a good day. And I was not planning to talk about your vacation for 5 minutes because that's going to be a future episode. But no, I think that's good. I love when we have a future trip planned on this podcast, because then we can talk about things like that. All right. So did we cover everything about Tiana's?
Yeah, the only other thing quickly, I'm not going to list all the dates. They came out with all the information about previews. They are going to do previews for pass holders and DVC and Club 33 and obviously we mentioned that D23 event. I will also mention they are having cast member ones, and we do have a couple cast members in our community on Discord that got dates, so we should be getting some reactions. One of them I think is going real early in that session, so we should be hearing things
like the first week of June. Yeah.
So we should be getting some stuff on Discord soon. And then the last little thing, I'd written this for last time and didn't mention it, but I thought it was interesting that you look at the dates that Splash Mountain was closed to when it will reopen versus Maelstrom going over to Frozen Ever After. Maelstrom to Frozen Ever After took 625 days. The Splash to Tiana's will only take 522 days, so about 100 days less.
I'm going to put us on the spot here for a second. Do we know how fast Mission Breakout was done for Tower of Terror over in Disneyland?
I don't. I can try to figure it out.
But I'm typing it right now, and I'm typing and talking. It doesn't work. Anyway, I'm not going to find it right off the bat. But that was also very quick too.
That one might have been even less, but yeah.
But in any case, I think I've been saying, at least I've been consistent where I'm like Splash Mountain is going to open like super early in the year versus like late in 2024, which was originally broadcasted to be late 2024, and it's moved up to June, which I think is really cool. The one thing that we were also wrong about was the length of previews. I thought they would be a little bit shorter, but I think they're doing the normal type of stuff.
Yeah.
So that was a good stat. I like that. For the rest of the show, we're going to be doing a top 5 that we did the DVC engagement for. But I want to do like a little PSA for everybody out there, and almost everybody in our community are wonderful people, and they are not of this ilk. But there's a lot of stuff that's flying out. The new DAS system, or I guess they're still calling it, or they're still calling it DAS.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The new way that they're doing things started today. There's a lot of stories about there where some people that had DAS before are not getting it, and there's disappointment, and there's some anger, or disappointment, or some negative feelings out there. All I want to say is be respectful of everybody's feelings. These are ways that they've done the parks before, and some people are not able to do that. So they have to come to terms with the new reality. We're not going to make any comments whether or not this is a good thing or a bad thing or justified or not. But I would like to have everybody out there, please be respectful of everybody else's feelings. People that are out there speaking out about this are most likely people that are just need somewhere to vent. And, just let them, you don't need to comment, give them, say a prayer for them if that's something that you do. Give them a heart if that's something that let them feel that they're still part of the community, and not everything is as desperate as they might be feeling right now, right?
Yep.
I do want to say that we have a friend of the family who's has a child with autism, that they went through the process about a week ago. They have a trip coming up in about a month. They were able to get DAS for her kid. And her one comment was that it took longer than she thought it would. So that was kind of like the pain in the butt system. But in the end, it was fairly easy. Yep. It was just a process that she had to go through. So
and I'll just say that it changed today was the first day.
Yep.
And my understanding from listening to some people who are even cast members and stuff, they're saying kind of the same thing. Be patient with it. It's going to take a little time to get through. It's new. Change is scary. But be as like kind of specific as you can with like the condition and why waiting in line is the challenge and stuff like that. And I just hope that at the end, everybody who wants to enjoy Disney is still able to,
yes,
whether it's through DAS or other means or whatever. But hopefully it'll take some time for things to settle down, but hopefully it will.
And we're not going to talk about the impact to the parks right now, A, because we don't have data, B, I think it's a little distasteful because it's the impact of the parks based on some disappointment of others. I don't think that really blends well together. So we're going to let this breathe for a little bit, and then I don't think we're going to be able to talk about it anyway until Lancaster comes out with some science and some math, and please do not rely on us for science or math when it comes to this, because we are not the smart people to kind of do this. But I just want to throw that out there. Know that it's out there. Know that the Twitterverse is going to be blowing up about it, or Reddit or Twitter or whatever it might be. So just stay nice. So last week, anyway, so we're going to move on. Last week, we had a DVC engagement, and we weren't planning to do this, but it makes sense that we are going to do this. We should have seen that. We asked you what your top 5 scenes are from attractions at Walt Disney World, and as usual, Lumpy cheated and used Disneyland, but we'll take we'll take it because it is also valid. And like anything, our games are usually top 5 lists, right? So we're gonna totally analyze, because the community had some really great engagement on this. And the way we're going to do this is we have all the different lists that all the different people in the community we're going to go in. I think we shouldn't call out people's names as we make these lists, but we're gonna label each one. We're not gonna rank them yet. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go through the whole list of everybody's. We're gonna label something as a nostalgia pick, which we think is probably it doesn't deserve to be a top 5, but it deserves to be a top 5 for you because it's nostalgia. There's no wrong answer to this, but we're gonna say this is probably a nostalgia pick because it's not gonna make nostalgia picks are probably not gonna be a top 5.
The overall top 5 for everyone.
Yeah, this is a personal one for you. It's not an overall one. The next one's gonna be a classic pick, which means like, hey, this ride is a classic because I've been going on it forever. It's not necessarily nostalgia, but like it's like you have to do this ride every time you go to Disney
it's just
World.
a classic Disney attraction effect
Exactly.
or whatever. Yeah.
And then the last one is a magic moment, whether that's like you got pixie dust and something happened in, this memory, or it's just like a really wow effect that like Disney Imagineering just like, wow, this is great. So it could be old attraction, it could be for brand new attraction. Those are the kind of moments. So we're going to label each one. This has no effect. I think this is totally unscientific. So this is Phil and I's opinion, and you can crucify us for it in any case. So after we go all done, as we're going through, we're going to pull out individual ones that we think deserve to be on a top 5. And then once we get a whole giant list, there might be like 8 or 9 of these things maybe after when all said and done. And then we're going to pare that down to a top 5. Phil, you're going to tally which one. And then once we get the top 5, we're going to rattle off Phil and I's. We cheated. We have like a list of like 9 each, which is just awful on our part. Then we're going to go through our own lists, and then we're going to say, we're going to go by one. Does this deserve to be on the list? Where does it go? What bumps it down? Type of thing. So we're going to interject ours and see if they're worthy to be in the community's top 5.
Yep.
Did I get that right, Phil? Because we spent like a billion minutes before the show figuring out how we're going to do this, but I think this is the best way to do it.
Yeah, I think that'll work. In summary, we're going to try to pick ones that are contenders for the top 5 from the community, narrow it down to 5, and then go through our own to see if any of them can crack the top 5.
By the way, this is going to be incredibly difficult because I have a somewhat of a stat towards at the end between once we get done with the community's answers, reason why it was very hard. So just keep that in mind. See if you can guess why as we're going to go through this. All right. So first person has in their top 5 or top handful. The first one is the broken tracks at Top Everest. That basically means when you go all the way up, you can see all the hair bands being flicked up. You see the tracks, and that's when the moment you go backwards. I think personally, this part is not really a classic pick, but I think I would label this as a magic moment.
I agree. I think it's one that kind of gets you kind of a wow moment, especially when you can look out and you can see like forever and stuff like that. I think that's definitely one of those kind of gives you goosebump moments.
And I think that this one, right off the bat, this one belongs on the potential top
too.
5.
Yep.
All right. I'm glad we agree on that one. The next one is the Nemo ride, the jellyfish scene. And he has a bunch of different comments on why. This is definitely a nostalgia pick.
Yep.
This is a very personal one for him. And I personally don't believe this is going to be a top 5 because I don't think anybody else. Oh man, it's not anybody, but probably not many other people think this way unless something is very special to them.
Yep.
The next one is the test track in the old hot cold room, but the new aerodynamics room, and I'm sticking my hands up and distrusting the flow of air as you see. I don't know what he's describing there. I can't remember this exactly.
It's the scene for the testing the aerodynamics where it shows like airflow going over your car.
Oh, right. Yes.
I think that's kind of a classic pick. That's what
I see. I would say nostalgia pick on this one because it's not. This is not a specific instance that I think is like all too special. Like for Test Track, I think the classic pick would be either once you go outside and you just go around, because I don't think there's anything like amazing on the inside because they're now replacing all of that right now. So I would label this nostalgia.
Sure.
Do you agree, or do you want to stick with a classic pick?
I mean, I think the reasoning for this one is probably nostalgic that this person gave. I was thinking Test Track kind of as a classic is become a bit of a classic Disney attraction.
Well, you see, but we can't do that though. We can't say the whole attraction. This specific scene.
Yeah, so I think this specific scene is more nostalgia. Yeah, okay, I could buy that.
Yep. The next one is the Tower of Terror. Once you leave the elevator shaft and drive out into the other shaft, basically it's you go up and kind of looks like you're moving on it.
It's like when you go into the Tower of Terror or the Twilight Zone part.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think this is absolutely a magic moment on this ride because it's it's like almost a combination of magic moment and classic pick at this point, because I think the ride's old enough now to be almost like a classic. So I'm going to label this as a magic moment, and I think this also belongs.
Yes,
on the top five.
I was gonna argue it if you didn't agree, so that's good.
No, I'm glad we agree. This is very boring that we're agreeing on everything. The next one, his last one that he wrote was Remy's Under the Grill or Stove Scene in the Effect. I think this ride's too new for it to be nostalgic at this point. Or excuse me, is a classic. So this could be nostalgia for a specific reason, but I think for him, this is a magic moment as a ranking. I'd like to say this is a top 5, but it's too new to almost be a top 5.
I don't think it qualifies. I mean, I think it's a fun effect, but it's not one of those like I'm going to tell everyone you have to.
Oh my goodness, right?
Exactly.
It's bloggers aren't writing about that moment, right? So I don't think it belongs in the top 5. Okay, so the next person wrote is the cave scene in Flight of Passage, and that's essentially after like you're running away from the big. I don't even know if there's a specific name for the big beast. It's just a bigger version.
It's a bigger version of the Banshee, yeah.
Or the Banshee, excuse me. So that's you're flying, and then it's like that moment of peace before you can kind of finish. It's like the halfway point almost of the attraction.
And it's where it's like dark, but then all the bioluminescence comes out to life and stuff like that. Yeah.
So that's a nice cave scene, and I think I don't know how you can call this a magic moment, because the whole ride is kind of like the magic moment, but I think I think at this point, even though the ride's it is 7 years old at this point, right? I think this has to be a classic pick at this point, because I think this is, because it's at Animal Kingdom, that park hasn't had a defining moment as a park. I think this has to, I can label this as a classic, because I think it'll always be this.
No, I think that's a good one.
And I think this also has to be a top 5.
I agree.
Yeah, so we're going to go with both of those. Okay, so the next one is tough to label. The transitions on Carousel of Progress, basically the Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow. That's both nostalgic. That's also classic. And I don't think you could call it magic, because nothing special is happening. Yeah. But like, I think it's a classic. Magic. But like, it could be both nostalgic and classic, I think, because it is for me, right? It's classic because it is classic Disney World, but there's nostalgia attached to it because it's also a family favorite for me personally, and I think it is for a lot of people.
Yep.
I don't think you could put this on the top 5.
I don't think so either. I was really searching when I was coming up my list. This was one of the rides where I'm like, this is such a classic Disney attraction. Is there that magic moment that gives you the goosebumps? I guess you could say the song in general, but there isn't that one moment in the ride. It's the ride as a whole, which is not what we're talking about for this list.
100%. Yes, because we have to be careful, right? We can't just say this ride's a classic. It's a top 5 ride. That's not that's the question. It's the scene. Yeah. These are multiple scenes throughout the whole thing. Yep. So it's tough.
Yep.
And I really want to put this on there, because this is one of the moments every Disney trip that we just kind of relax. You're in air conditioning. It's like, it's a tough, but it's not. It's more of a feeling of being in the park and being at Disney World, and not specifically exactly. If that makes sense.
Yep.
The next one is the dance lesson room with Daisy and Mickey Minnie's Runaway Railway. I think this is just a magic moment because the coordination of all the different vehicles. That's how I would label it. I don't think it can't be nostalgia or classic, because it's 5 years old at this point, 4.5 years old at this point. So I guess
it has to be that. I was thinking a little bit nostalgic, because I think there's, and we'll see that when we get into the answers, kind of like different parts on this ride that seem to resonate with people. So there's definitely like a personal element to this one as well. So that's why I thought a little bit about the nostalgic. But I agree with you. Like there's that magic moment element to it.
And I really would like to put this on the top 5, because this is one of my favorite rides, because it's just the whole thing, the whole song and the animation just makes me really happy. But I don't think it holds up to.
No, and I don't think this is the moment I would pick from this ride either.
I agree. And one of the things that is not on my list, wasn't on anybody else's list, but there was a moment like the queue scene, like the screen breaks and you enter the cartoon. That could probably, you could argue that to be a top 5.
I agree too. Yeah.
But no one picked that, including myself. The last one on this person's list was floating between the restaurant and the Mayan pyramid on the Mexico ride, this Grand Fiesta Tour. I think to me, this is primarily a nostalgia pick. Yeah. But you can make an argument that it's also a classic because it's not, I wouldn't call this classic Epcot, but it's just been there forever.
It's been there forever, although it's not the original version of the ride and stuff like that. So to me, it's more nostalgia, but I get what you're saying. That it feels like classic Epcot. So.
But it's just because it's been there forever, right? But no one ever associates it with like, it's like a movie that gets a cult following that only 10,000 people watch this because of it. So I don't think you could put that on the top 5 moment at all. But there is a sense of like I think I don't want to call it an elitist type of opinion, because only true Disney stands can be getting on the vehicle and they're floating the restaurants to your right as you're entering the park. Like, to me, that's just like classic Disney. Like, you just feel at peace, and it's just something different. And the normal guest is probably not feeling that. They're like, okay, this is a boat ride, whatever, but they're ready to go.
It's definitely one of those rides where if this was anywhere else, you would not have the same feelings. But because it's at Disney, we have those strong feelings for it.
There's one other one that was on the next page of our show notes. Is the London skyline on Peter Pan. Peter Pan is the most overrated ride in the Magic Kingdom and Walt Disney World as a whole. I'm going to label this one as a classic pick. It is a classic ride. And you can label it a magic moment. You can, because it's the time you're kind of.
I think classic fits. Yeah,
but classic fits. Like, you can label it almost any of these, but I think classic is this a top 5 moment?
It's close to me, because I think that effect is such great Imagineering, and I think it is kind of that wow moment when you see the buildings getting smaller, and like, I think it's just a really cool effect.
You could put it on there. I mean, like,
I don't know if it'll make the final list, but I think it could be in consideration.
Pull it out. Yes. I know. I agree with you. I mean, there's so many people that love this attraction because of it.
Yes. I think it's the best part of the attraction by far.
I disagree with that, but we'll talk about that when it comes to my list, because it's on my list, one of these things. All right. The next person's got quite a few, which is fine. We all break the rules sometimes. The next one is walking into the lobby of the Millennium Falcon. That's basically where I think he's referring to the point where you're getting your job selection, right? You're the
I'm assuming it's the part with the chessboard scene and stuff like that. Yeah.
And that is definitely a magical moment, right? It's too new to be anything else, but like, that is such a that is definitely like,
especially for big Star Wars fans. Yeah.
Well, anybody that has some sort of nostalgia feelings for the OT. Yeah. That is definitely a wow moment. I mean, this is one of my favorite rides just because I'm an OT stan. Can I put this on the top 5 moment? I mean, I really want to, but I don't think you can.
Yeah. I think it's close, but I would say no. I think it just is.
If we were building a top 10, yes, but we're building a top 5.
Yeah. Okay.
So, I'll hurt myself on that one. Then there's the other one. There's just one that you don't even know.
I haven't even seen yet, so I can't.
It's the wall window reveal before going into the Tron loading station. Basically, you're standing on a wall, it becomes opaque, and you can kind of see things, and then you walk to the right. It's a really cool effect. It's definitely a magic moment because there is a wow factor to it. I thought it was really cool, but I wasn't like overly like amazed by it. Like, I wasn't totally immersed. And that's because I was a dum-dum when I walked in there because right before that, because you have to walk all the way in and then you take a door at the very end. I couldn't see the door. So I got yelled at to open the door and move forward. I don't know what was going on, but anyway, I think it's a really cool effect. I just don't think there's so many more that are better than that. And I know you can't judge this, but I don't think it's a top 5 moment. It has the potential maybe to be a top 10, but like at that point, you're all hot and sweaty about waiting outside because the queue area, you're just like, let me get on the ride at this point. There was no buildup of anticipation to this point because this is like you've been waiting online all the way. That's the queue that's all the way extended out. You finally got close. You go in, and then you're like the inside portion of it's not like you've been in Guardians of the Galaxy. You kind of see some things. You're seeing like nothing but concrete and the ride going above you, and then you enter. So I don't want to say it's anticlimactic, but it's just like, all right, you're just now impatient because now there's a long way to go still after this, right? So the next one is the Magic Mirror Illusion in Enchanted Tales with Belle. If you have not seen this before, you definitely owe it to yourself to go see it. And if you're over the age of like, I want to say 17 or 18, please do not push your way forward. Let the smaller children. do this because my 6-year-old saw it and she was massively impacted by it. So have you seen this before,
Yes.
Phil?
Yeah.
So this is basically like you're in line, you get into the pre-show room where she kind of the cast member does a kind of spiel, and there's the magic mirror, and all of a sudden it extends, it opens up, and it's a doorway, and it's an amazing. It's probably one of the best effects on property. This is definitely a magic moment, and I think it definitely.
I agree. Yep.
The next one is the hairy leg scene and the dog with the key scene in the Pirates of the Caribbean. This is, I want to call this nostalgia because there's nothing really nostalgic about it, I think, but it's definitely a classic moment.
Yeah.
And this, now, I don't think this is a top 5 because there's nothing, it's iconic because it's, it's just old. It's been there. It's been in the movies. It's been replicated. But there's nothing about it that's like, this is an amazing scene, I think. And I'm killing myself because this is one of my favorite rides, if not the favorite ride on property for me. And I was never I love that scene, but this is not the scene I would pick that I would love to see on repeat for 30 times a day.
Yep.
Would you put this in the top 5?
No. I actually, when we get to my list, I had a different scene from Pirates of the Caribbean. And even that, to me, it's almost more one of the ride is like the sum is more than the total of the parts. Like it's more the ride. I
totally agree with you.
Yeah.
Because if I could put like the smell of the water coming from the queue as you're walking by as a moment, I would put that too. Yeah. Again, we're not rating rides,
exactly,
but we're writing like scenes, and there's no specific scene in there that's amazing. But I have one in my top list. Also, we'll talk about it later.
I don't know if it'll make our top 5.
Exactly. He had an honorable mention. The interview from the Tower Park Swiss Family Treehouse, especially at night. This is definitely nostalgia.
Yeah.
There's nothing magical or classic about that attraction. But there are some probably fun moments. You climb up there with a parent when you're a kid and you do your kids type of thing, or that type of thing. There's definitely memories of trudging upstairs and for some
sure
reason at Magic Kingdom. So we'll let you go with that. The next person, the graveyard scene in the Haunted Mansion, the Grim Grinning Ghost song. This is tough. I don't know if I can label this as a magical moment, but it's definitely a classic moment.
Classic, yeah.
And probably nostalgia. I mean, like anything that's classic is almost nostalgia,
but
classic could be the way I
think it's less personal, right?
Yes.
More universal.
Exactly. I would say either classic or iconic moment, right? Does this belong in the top 5 scenes? And to me, it's very, very close. I could see putting it on there. This might be like maybe 5, 6, or 7. Do we want to put this one on the list?
I'll put it on there. We can always take it out. I actually picked a different scene from the Haunted Mansion's another one where it's like hard to pick one scene, but
I have one that's totally going to bump this one out. So, but we'll put it on there just to put it in the running. The next one is the cave scene from Flight of Passage. We already discussed that one already because we'll skip it because that's already on the list. The hill climb on the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. And that's basically, I love this scene, right? You go on through, you have a little tiny drop, you swing around, and then you're kind of going back up again, and they're all singing Hi Ho. I always sing along. I always have a giant smile on my face at this moment. This is definitely, I don't think it's a wow moment because there's nothing going, wow, this is amazing. And I don't know if I can call it classic because the ride is about 10 years, not 10 years old, almost 10 years old. This one, eight years, 2015-ish. Give or take a year, 2014, 2015, I think. That being said, how would you label this, in your opinion? This is a tough one.
Yeah. I mean, if I had to, I still think it feels like a classic attraction, kind of an iconic type Disney thing.
At this point, yeah.
So even though it's not old, I would still probably call it that.
Would you put this on the top 5 list?
I don't think so. It's a fun scene. It helps with the ride, but I don't know. I would.
I mean, there's been times I don't even go on this attraction when I'm at Disney World. So I guess maybe that's the way we could judge it too. There's another vote for the hallway scene in the Tower of Terror. We talked about that already. And then walking onto the Star Destroyer and Rise of the Resistance. And that's basically where you have all the stormtroopers you're looking at to space. This is definitely a wow moment or magic moment. This is definitely wow. This is definitely a top 5 moment in my opinion.
For sure.
I don't think if you haven't experienced this spoilers, I guess. But this is a moment that like where you see the vast majority of pictures for this attraction. There's definitely people that just hang out here for longer than they should before like, oh wait, there's more to this attraction, right? So it's definitely a fantastic moment. And as bad as a lot of people want to badmouth Star Wars Galaxy's Edge for being the sequel trilogy, for not using the original trilogy, for it's skipping out from the original vision that we were told that this land was going to be. All the things, the detraction, people still go on to this area of the thing. And no matter if you're an OT stan or a sequel stan or anything else, this is just a giant wow factor for every type of Star Wars fan.
Just because of the scale of it, and it's one of those things you never thought you'd be there type things in real life. So yeah,
absolutely. So I didn't even label that one, but so we're gonna label that one. All right, next person has writing up with, and I didn't think I knew what this was, but I guess right, the MSV, the Main Street Vehicles.
Yeah,
up Main Street on the castle. I don't know if this counts as an attraction, but I will allow it. I think this is more nostalgic than classic.
So too. Yeah.
I don't think it belongs in the top 5 because it's kind of cheating, because it's just like, here's the whole park that you really, really love. But like, it's definitely something. I've never done this. I've never ridden on the vehicles in Main Street because
I've only ridden one, and it was when I was younger. But yeah, they're not, unless you're there early in the morning and kind of looking for them. They're not running very often.
Yeah. So one that you can't reliably get on in any way. I don't think it can count as a top 5, but I agree with you. It is a stunning visual, and it's a really cool thing.
Yep.
Another vote for the cave scene in Flight of Passage. We talked about it already. The top is Slinky Dog Dash when you go up and down. I think this one is just a nostalgic moment for this person, and I would agree. There's nothing iconic or magic about it. There's nothing classic about it, at least yet. But it's a really cool moment. So I'll give her that. Doesn't belong in the top 5. This person also calls out the safari, specifically when she sees the giraffes. I would love the safari to be here, but this is more of some of the parts type of equation.
Yeah, and it's not really. I mean, I guess they created the areas that the animals are in and stuff like that, but it's not really scenes, right? It's just the experience of being
the overall experience.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, I'll put this as a classic because the safari is a classic attraction at this point. So I'm going to leave with that. And then Festival of the Lion King, specifically when the Bird Lady does. I've only seen the Festival of the Lion King twice, and that hasn't been since 2019. So I don't really remember this. This is more of entertainment and not an attraction. So we're gonna have to cross this one on the list as far as the top 5. But I think at this point, that's probably just a nostalgic thing. I think because they really love a specific part, and it's not. I mean, the show is fantastic, but it's like there's a couple scenes that you could probably put on there that are like big, but again, it's entertainment. So like
it's
in 5 years, what if somebody's not as good as the one that you remember doing? Like one person jumps a little bit higher, and it was really fantastic. I don't know. All right, the next person we warned, and it's lumpy. We weren't calling out the people with their things, but there's some Disneyland type of things. So first one is Main Street at Walt Disney World. That doesn't count. It's not an attraction. You knew the rules to this game, but if it was an attraction, that would definitely be classic and nostalgic and a wow factor, and definitely top 5. Yes, so that's kind of cheating. There's 2 next ones are all Disneyland ones, and it's 2 from the same attraction. I was going to name my kids swim team because it's the same initials. This is why can't I think of the name?
Radiator Springs Racers.
Radiator Springs. I even wrote the name of my kid's swim team in the list in the notes. I've never been on this attraction, so I believe have you?
Yes.
Been on
this? We were on it when we were out in Disneyland. It's really cool. The loading area. It really makes you feel immersed in the area. There's animatronics used throughout, and the waterfall reveal again. You're going right through it, and everything about that ride's amazing. I think we're doing it for Walt Disney World, so we're not going to put these on the top 5 list.
Yes.
Because I think other people would chime in about Disneyland and stuff like that. And I think this ride's also. There's other parts of the ride you could pick too. It's also another one of those kind of almost the sum is more than the total of the parts type.
And this is one of the most popular.
Oh yeah, it's an amazing ride. It's really good. It's just I think it's hard to pick one scene.
So we're gonna ignore both of these scenes because he also has the waterfall reveal on the right. I don't know what that is because I've never. I try not to watch.
Yeah, it's when you're going around the bank and you're going, and then there's like a waterfall coming down, and they use force perspective to make it seem more impressive. And
because when I eventually go to Disneyland, I kind of really want to explore that park not through the eyes of somebody that's watched like 1,000 like YouTube videos and the differences between the two. So I've kind of attempted to stay a little spoiler free.
Gotcha.
For that. Who knows whenever I'll ever get out there. The next one was the inside ship reveal at Guardians of the Galaxy. That is like right after the loading, the merge point. You go into the room, you go through the whole spiel of why you're there, that sort of thing. This is definitely a magic moment. My kids absolutely love this, and this definitely belongs, in my opinion, in the top 5 moments.
Yep. Yeah, assuming we're allowing pre-show stuff, then definitely.
Yes. Yeah. I think the way Disney does pre-show, it's part of the show, in my opinion, and there's definitely it adds to the attraction, and I think it's part of the story, so it counts. Yep. There's another load area for the Disneyland Pirates. For the sake of time and for the sake of this conversation, we're moving on. And then the last person is the People Mover. When you come around the turn to see the castle, as much as I love the People Mover, this is definitely a classic label, but not top 5. There's another Disneyland Resort with a porch of Haunted Mansion. I don't think that really counts. The test track when you're banking ahead and seeing the miles per hour indicator. I think that is a classic moment. I think that does belong on the top 5. It is kind of an iconic ride. I don't know if it I think it should be in the list.
All right, I'll add it to the list. I personally wouldn't put it there, so it's probably not going to make the top 5. But if, I'm happy putting it on the list.
Okay, well, if you totally don't disagree, to take it off the list because it's not going to make it.
Yep.
The ending scene in Mickey Minnie's Runaway Railway. I'm assuming that's right before, as the attraction ends, you're ready to get back to debark. But he also says
I don't know. It says with the waterfalls, which is confusing because that's like the kind of in the middle of the ride. So
I don't know. But let's just say ending scene in Mickey Minnie's Runaway Railway. I love that scene. That is definitely. I don't think there's a wow magic moment on this one, but I think it's kind of half classic, half nostalgia.
Yeah.
It's just like it's like
like a modern classic, right?
Well, it's like the Remy's conversation we had before, right? I still don't think people. I don't even know how to label this, so we're just gonna leave that blank. And again, another vote for the cave scene in Flight of Passage.
Yep.
So as this took much longer than I thought it was going to be, where are we sitting now with our list?
We have 8 potential for top 5, so not too bad. So we have the broken tracks at the top of Everest.
Oh, let me ask you this. Can you copy paste that list into our show notes so I can see as you go through them? Because I totally forgot all that. I don't know if that's easy enough for you to do. And as you're doing that, here's why this is really difficult. So I thought, all right, I'm going to tally them all up and see which one wins just based on the votes. Outside of maybe the ones that taking 2 that don't count that were repeated, there's 3 that had 2 people vote for them. There's obviously the Flight of Passage cave scene that everybody liked, which is apparently going to be probably one of the top 5 ones. Everybody else picked different rides, and there wasn't even duplications of different scenes and attractions. Everybody picked a different attraction. So what that tells me is that there's so many different points that people see and appreciate at Disney World that this is going to be tough to kind of narrow down the top 5. All right, so out of these rings here, so we have the broken tracks at Everest, Tower of Terror, Cave Scene of Flight of Passage should definitely be long, right? So let's just highlight that one. I'm gonna do the old highlight in the thing if I can do that quickly in the thing. We're gonna highlight that yellow. The London skyline in Peter Pan, the magic. I think let's pick out some of the ones that are definitely gonna be there. A cave scene, the Magic Mirror in Enchanted Tales with Belle, I think definitely belongs there. Walking the Star Destroyer for Rise of the Resistance. And I think also these are all relatively new attractions. Do we want to put the Guardian scene, the pre-show scene, automatically in the top 5 before discussing anything else?
I don't know. I'm between. I'm right with you with the 3 you have so far.
Okay.
And then I'm between the Guardians and entering the Twilight Zone. I think are probably my next 2. Although.
Okay, so if we do Tower of Terror and Guardians, do we leave out Everest, Peter Pan, and the graveyard scene? Are we okay with eliminating those 3 and just going, that's our top 5 right there?
I think so. My next one would be Everest. So I don't know where.
Well, we can start talking about it. Okay, because I think that's so. We've got these. I'm going to delete these in our show notes, and we're not if you're listening, we're not showing this on screen or anything. So this is fantastic editing as we go along. All right, so I'm going to take these. I'm going to cut these out of the show notes and bring them up to our list. So how do you want to do this, Phil? I know we talked about it. Do we want to just go through each one individually and see if we would slot it and eliminate it real quick?
That's kind of what I was thinking. It was like, just like we mentioned everybody else's, let's mention ours, the ones we came up with, and if we think it's better than any in the top 5.
Okay, so let me put these actually in the top. Why don't you start with yours, and then you run them through, and I will give you my initial impression whether or not you need to slot in. Do we want to? We're doing a top 5. Do we want to number these right now? So let's do these real quick. So I think out of the cave scene of Flight of Passage, because of the communities thing, we're going to rate that number 1.
Okay.
The next one I think is the Star Wars Star Destroyer. Well, I'm going to give that number 2. Tell me if you disagree. I'm going to do this quickly. Number 3, because it's such a classic, I'm going to go with Tower of Terror as number 3. Then I'm going to go with, I think the Magic Mirror Enchanted Tales with Belle, only because I think also that's for kids and more people have seen that. And then as much as I love the pre-show and Guardians, I'm going to rank that number 5.
I think I'm fine with that.
Okay, so we're good. So I am going to reorder these. And why don't you start naming off yours?
So the first one I thought of, and I'm kind of surprised nobody mentioned this one, is the shaman at the end of Navi River. And I don't know if it's just because we were thinking about this in the light of some of the effects in Fantasy Springs that are very animatronic focused. That animatronic to me is a wow factor.
I think so too, because it's one of the first times we've seen some of the new animatronics, right? So there's definitely a classic feel. Like this is where we went from like very rigid or like frozen project face type of things to like this looks like a real thing that's moving around there. I don't know if you could put this in front of any of the ones that are up there currently 1 through 5. In my opinion, would you eliminate any of those?
I mean, I guess we're arguing, is this better than the pre-show element in Guardians?
I think that's the question.
Yeah.
Would you put it there for that?
It's close because to me, it's like kind of when I'm thinking of a show scene in an attraction, it's more than a pre-show element. So I could argue that it would be, but I don't know where you stand.
I'm on the fence with this one. So if you feel strongly that it belongs on number 5, I'll agree with that because I think it's even because yes, I think you do have a point that because it's part of the attraction, it has higher weight. So I'll agree with you on that one then.
Okay.
You've convinced me.
All right.
I'll do the editing. What's the next one for you?
Then I had the Shuttle Bay or the Rise of the Resistance scene everyone's already mentioned. I had for the Haunted Mansion the ballroom scene, just because it uses Pepper's ghost and it's just so impressive with how much is going on. So that's again, I think the Haunted Mansion is more sum of the parts. The total is more than the sum of the parts. But that was the scene in the Haunted Mansion, Ivan.
I think that's definitely classic, and I would have easily put that on the list, but I don't think that's better than any of the ones that are top 5 right now. I agree.
Similar thing for Pirates. I picked that first battle, like when you first come out of the caves, and there's the battle between the giant pirate ship and the castle. To me, that's kind of like a wow moment. It's kind of the music starts. It's kind of in your face. So to me, that was the point of Pirates that jumped out at me.
Yeah, this was another move. I almost put this one on my list. I don't think it's better than the top 5 that we have there right now. Because again, Pirates,
I think that's fine. Yeah, same thing. I picked from Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, and it's kind of more just the effect that it has the tropical scene. Then you go to the waterfall, and you go back into the same room, and now it's transformed into the underwater scene. I think that's a really cool effect. Probably not going to make the list or anything like that, but that's my favorite part of that ride.
I mean, I love that whole attraction.
Yeah.
As much people want to rad on it because of it's screens. I love being in there with everything that's on there. I agree. It doesn't belong in the top 5.
No. Then I had the pre-show element from Guardians, the magic doorway from Enchanted Tales with Belle. Then I had some finale elements from animatronic heavy classic things, Country Bears, Tiki Room, and then the Hall of Presidents. I don't think they make the list, but they were ones that if you're really into like classic animatronics, they're kind of wow moments.
Yep.
And then I ended with the entering the Twilight Zone part of Tower of Terror. And then I put
3 on the list.
And then I put hopefully something from Tiana's Bayou Adventure will make this list. But
yeah, I mean that might it's like we're seeing like the Mama Odie kind of animatronic and stuff like that. That has a strong contender to at least knock out the shaman in Navi River, because the reason why the shaman's up there is because of just the technology that it is. And it's a shame that's at the very end. And you're like, oh, that's it. I thought there was going to be more. Right. So maybe because of Tiana's, you might see some impressive animatronics, and yet there's more. And then there's more. And then there's more. It might be really cool before you get to that final scene after the drop. All right. So going through some of mine. Some of the classic moments for me were the smoke smell that you get once the town is burning on Pirates of the Caribbean. I just like when I go on that attraction, I smell that. I know at Disney World, right? But there's nothing specific about it that belongs in the top 5. But like I had to put a pirate scene on here. I love the Remy mop scene where you get a little spurt of like water as the mop goes by. Again, I don't think you can contend with anything in the top 5 on this one, but that's something for me that's like a really cool moment. My kids absolutely love it. Here's one I think is a contender, and I'm going to argue strongly for this one. It's the stretch room at the Haunted Mansion. I don't think, even though this is a pre-show element, I think it's so classic. It's so amazing to me personally. I think it's because it's similar. It's like a predecessor to the Guardians of the Galaxy scene, but it's so iconic that I think it belongs on the list.
Okay.
And I would argue that potentially it could be, I would slot Magic Mirror and Shaman up and take out Terror of Terror and slot this in at number 5. That's how I would put things.
Interesting.
How would you do it? Would you do it? First of all, do you agree that it should be on the top 5?
I hadn't thought about that one. Again, I think when I was doing this list, I was kind of very focused on animatronics, so that's why this one didn't really get to me.
Okay.
But I do get what you're saying. It is such a classic, and it's so well done. It has great effects, and it sets the stage so well for the whole attraction. I'm good with putting it on the list.
Where do you put it on the list, though? What are you knocking off?
Yeah, so I guess is it better than the Shaman, or is it better than Tower of Terror, which we know a number of people said. I maybe just take out the Shaman.
Okay. We'll do that way. Because I think you can, depending on who you talk to. I mean, the Shaman is just to me, it's like, it's not an effect or a scene. It's just like, this is an amazing piece of technology. And I think if that ride was better, I mean, not that it was a bad ride, but it's an average ride with a really cool ending. I think if it was better, that would have more of an impact on the scene. Fair. I think. The next one was another queue thing. So I don't know if there's a trend here. But I think the Peter Pan queue is better than the attraction overall. And it's specifically the kids' room where you kind of see Tinkerbell flying all over the place. You got the Peter Pan music in the back. You've got Tink going in and out of drawers and rattling things. You get to play with the shadows and everything else like that. Does this to me that sets the standard for queues at Disney World? I mean, it's not like a great new queue, but it's like it's when they redid the attraction and then like they added all of this. Like, the queue could be something other than a switchback line to get onto the attraction, right? I don't think it belongs in the top 5, but I think it belongs in the top 10, in my opinion. But again, we're not here to debate top 10. We're debating top 5. It doesn't belong there. Another iconic moment, and again, doesn't belong in the top 5, but I love to discuss it. It's basically the rise into Space Mountain, right? You get on the boat, you go get on the vehicle, you go around the bend, and you start going up. You see the spacemen kind of astronauts kind of float in space. I love that moment because obviously you can't see anything on the rest of the attraction, but that to me that's just like classic, like old school Disney. You hear like the old rickety thing going up, and you hear screams and everything. I love that area. Another vote for me from the peak of Expedition Everest. I think that's been on both of our lists, right? You had that on there. Here's another one. And I think this has a strong contention of being on there. This might be number 6. We have an honorable mention, and it's either the Rome Falls or the Phoenician scene in Spaceship Earth. Because that to me, classic Epcot. There's smells.
I agree with you. The problem is it's multiple scenes, right? It's the Rome Falls, the Alexandria Library burns. That's where the smell is.
Yep.
It's the Phoenician scene with Thank the Phoenicians. I think you could also argue the top of the ride when you see the Earth and you can tell like you're inside Spaceship Earth and stuff.
Or the mammoth scene as you're going into the I mean, like there's...
It's just the ride, though, so I don't know if there's any one scene that's like...
This is definitely a nostalgia pick and a classic pick hand in hand. But the fact that you could pick so many is like you have to pick the ride.
It almost
and then we're not picking the
disqualifies it.
ride.
Exactly.
Yeah. Which stinks. The next one, again, pre-show, is the Tiki Room intro drums. Like when because you can just start hearing those drums and everybody's okay. The doors flop open up and everybody's going inside. You know, like the show hasn't started yet, but it's nice and cool. It's shaded. There's water. I love that scene. It brings a smile to my face. It's one of my favorite attractions. This is the only ride at Disney World or show that if they ever decided to get away, that's the one where I go crazy on the internet and start petitions and all this other stuff. And I'll become one of those people for this one. Rise of the Resistance scene, I think, is on everybody's list, so I have that on there. Also, the Guardians of the Galaxy queue, it's both of our lists as well. And then the Carousel of Progress, we talked about that earlier. It's the song that just hits me in the feels, but it has nothing. It's not a specific scene. It's the theme song of attraction. So I think that's it, right? I want to thank the community for putting up an awesome list and doing really the homework on this one. Maybe we need to do this more often. I like this exercise, and it was the whole show basically. So our top 5, Phil, I think we did a good job. The cave scene in Flight of Passage, and you could maybe this was on everybody's list, right? This was the top one on almost everybody's. This got all the votes. There's nothing specific about this scene that's amazing, but it's just like your adrenaline is going, and this is just the moment where you kind of take a break.
Yeah, I just remember the first time or the first couple times I rode this, the whole ride, but especially that scene just was one of the most immersive experiences I've had, because you're kind of calming down, but you could still feel the Banshee under you breathing and stuff like that. Like it's just a really special time. It allows you to take a vacation of the ride, right? We should have learned this lesson a long time ago. We're just discovering this. All right, this is what therapy's for. We're bringing out things. The Star Destroyer scene, we talked about this already. I mean, this could be number 1 easily in my opinion. But is that number 2? Tower of Terror scene. I don't understand why this is iconic. I don't personally believe that it really deserves to be on the top 5, but it does deserve to be on the top 5. I'm like conflicted about this. I think it's just a really cool scene and it's really impressive. Not to mess up everything, but we did both put, and others had, the top part of Everest. Would you put that over this? I personally was, because Tower of Terror was not on my list. Yeah. Everest probably deserved to be on the list because it was also mentioned a handful of times. I don't know if I want to take this one and put this one out, but you can convince me to do it and go back and do it. So I don't know. Like, there's nothing about the scene in the Everest that's impressive, but it's the just anticipation of going backwards, right? Like what's happening now. So it's definitely a great scene, a great moment, but it's not visually stunning. It's just the anticipation, which Disney does a lot with a lot of other attractions. Okay. The Magic Mirror, you could argue that Tower of Terror and this can flip flop 3 and 4. You ask me tomorrow, I might say yes. This is whatever. This is a scene that's talked about by everybody. It is so underrated as an effect because a lot of people don't go back. It's not an attraction. Or a lot of people think it's just for little kids and don't go, whatever. It's a 30-minute experience, and it's mostly is for kids because it is all, you're meeting princesses and all this other type of stuff. But it's such an amazing effect that if you have anybody that's under the age of 18, you have to do this. If you have non-kids, you should do this also because it's just really, really cool. The last one, I advocated for this 5 minutes ago, the Stretch Room at Haunted Mansion. I just reviewed the whole thing. I think that's just too iconic to Disney to not, because it's the OG like effect. Yeah. And I think that's it. All right, so we're gonna leave it there. We're way over time. I know. But so thank you for hanging in there. So we're gonna what's next week, Phil? What is our next DVC engagement for next week? Yeah, so for next week, we didn't get into it, but Disney released kind of a sizzle reel and this whole thing about all these charts and stuff like that about what they're doing now is called Beyond Storytelling. So it's all about how all the IP fits together between movies and shows and the parks and the cruise line and all that sort of stuff. So what we want to do in that, and also hot off the whole thing where we talked about Fantasy Springs and how that seems so amazing and immersive and new rides and stuff like that, knowing they're building new areas in Walt Disney World, whether it's, or even in Disneyland Forward, there's new stuff coming to the stateside parks, new lands. What do you want to see in those lands keeping in mind things like beyond storytelling and stuff like that. Where do you want to see it? And do you want it to be dark rides, thrill rides, boat rides? What do you want to see there? Kinetic things, ambience, kind of what do you want to see? Knowing the direction Disney's going, what do you hope to see in some of these building projects?
Because this is basically on the tails of the whole IP discussion versus park IP, which is, in my opinion, silly conversation, but it's inevitably going to be part of this. But Iger has said we are investing IP into the parks, so the conversation is done at this point. There's no sense of arguing it. This is where the $60 billion is going. So knowing that IP is coming to the parks, it's coming to hotels, it's coming to attractions, it's coming to pluses, it's coming to entertainment, it's coming all over the place, and it's coming to the parks within the next 10 years. How do you want to see it? What would be, if you want to Imagineer a brand new land and hotel that's attached to Magic Kingdom, you can. Or do you want to talk about, like, these are some of the bits that you want to see, but like it's not like this specific ride, but I want more boat rides, I want more dark rides, I want more like places to sit and more like park type of things with like foliage that you can kind of just like Journey of Water type things, like, you know, sky's the limit on what you want to do. But we want to see, how do you want the parks to evolve with IP over the next decade? I think that's a good way.
That's a good way of summing it up. Yep.
And which I'll have to remember when I write it up on Discord later. Probably going to forget. But anyway, thank you for listening and watching, everybody. Thank you for hanging in there for an extra 10 minutes. If you haven't participated in the top 5, let it go. And we're going to post what we came up with the top 5 and see if we're wrong. So Phil,
tell us where we're wrong.
So Phil, if you wouldn't mind cutting paste this into Discord while I start doing the post work, I want to say this is what we came up with, and let us know if you agree or disagree on our top 5 or how you would do it differently. That being said, thank you for watching and listening, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Take care, everyone.